Well, Money in the Bank. It was a show that, of course, I watched. That's practically it. I did not watch the Jeff Hardy and Cesaro match that was kickoff because I heard it was primarily one of the saving graces of the night. And probably must have been, it's been since since late March, since we've seen Jeff Hardy in action against Baron Corbin in his return match after suffering an injury. Then he came off showing up these documentary videos to at least generate something for a future campaign, future feud with Sheamus. Ended off wrestling Cesaro because I guess tag team wise, even though Cesaro is associated with Shinsuke Nakamura now. The match I heard was pretty good, and I couldn't blame you. I mean, high flyer with Cesaro means fun match to start it off, but that should have been the opening match rather than a multi-man match for the tag team titles. That was a spot fest, overgrown pile of shit. The biggest move I remember was a drop kick into a moonsault to John Morrison by Listorada. That was a good spot. There was too many moves where they were trying to splash off. Even the first 5 minutes, they were starting to do sentons from over the top rope, and there's just a reason to just do multi-man spots. Like, it's so played out. Like, what's going to happen if multiple teams get screen time? Well, they're going to have a fatal four-way tag team match. They're not going to have a tornado tag team match. The Money in the Bank is ladder match oriented, so why not a ladder match? A fatal four-way ladder match. It's not like you guys haven't done something like that before. Could have made it more exciting, but we got this overgrown spot fest, and we knew the New Day were going to retain over Big E struggling to do his dumbass little spear he always does off a stop by, I think, John Morrison at counter off the Starship Pain from Skull Crushing Finale when the Lucha House Party was stuck alone with Miz and Morrison. The commentary felt like crap. And it just didn't feel like a good show. It did not feel like a good opening match. It was just an overrun, forced, overly scripted adrenaline fest, I guess. This was an unnecessarily fast-paced match. It was the weakest match, I think, of the show, in my opinion. Other than that, I guess it did what it was supposed to. If anybody thought that the match was fine, go ahead. I just thought that it was mediocre. It was a mediocre spot fest that didn't tell much of a story, except that I guess the Forgotten Sons could do some moves. R-Truth faced off against Bobby Lashley after insulting, I think, MVP over his pose, and then came around just calling him a future riffraff, or whatever the fuck looking ass. It was so fucking weird. Get this sass on looking ass. Fucking bleach looking ass. That's what the fuck am I watching here? What am I watching? For God's sake, someone explain. What the fuck am I watching? First, if I'm hearing so much about this Jeff Hardy and Cesaro match, having a good start in the kickoff, why wouldn't they have somebody that actually had screen time and excited to come back like Jeff Hardy? Oh, but Jeff Hardy was in kickoff, but MVP that's been jobbing out since coming back as a single star is in the middle of the show against R-Truth. And R-Truth then later on just counted off himself as pinning Rob Gronkowski. He called him Tom Brady and still calls himself the 7-Eleven European 24/7 champion. It was a funny promo, and R-Truth is a funny dude. I can understand why they still keep him. He's literally one of the more saving graces of the pay-per-view, because he can actually talk. He's entertaining, and he can do, even though his dancing is cringe, he's the most entertaining part of WWE at the moment. And it was trash for the rest of the show. It was just pure trash, and I'll go more on to the Money in the Bank corporate ladder match later on in the show, because that's a huge ass rant upon itself. You can already tell I'm not going to give Money in the Bank a top rating all because of its indie-rific cinematic motif of bullshit storytelling and just borderline slapstick for the sake of entertainment over the story. I'm not upset because it was comedic. I was upset because there's a lack of creativity. Like, this is shit if they mixed the hardcore championships from the matches from the 90s and the House of Horror match, and just borderlined it with mediocre cameos. Like, oh, I remember John Laurinaitis. I said, the fuck is that? That's not Doink. But I'll go more into that later. Next up was Bayley against Tamina Snuka for the SmackDown Women's Championship. It's already a less competent belt. It's a really terrible belt. I swear to God, nobody remembers that Bayley even turned heel like after she just lost, and she lost multiple times. Yet she turns heel after not beating Charlotte, and then beating her after a roll up from the turnbuckle. It's just poor. Bayley just does the most basic heel shit as champion, and we thought she's gonna be more aggressive. All she did was get in a pseudo feud with Lacey Evans, gets in the most personal shots as possible. Instead of gifting her a rematch or something, she gives Tamina Snuka for the announcement. We know that she was going to lose. Tamina is the equivalent of just Natalya. A veteran generational star that obviously is not going to get much of the fame that she obviously deserves. But she comes around doing spots with Sasha Banks, super kicks off counters. It was a smart super kick into a heel hook, and it was a good call of Corey Graves, saying one hit was enough to notice that the champion could know her homework. It was an okay match. That's all I could say. It was the equivalent if they could have this match on SmackDown with a fucking crowd, and it would have been the same thing. Thanks, Bayley doesn't tell a story. I'm shocked that they didn't even equivalent in letting Sasha Banks sabotage a bit of the match, because she nearly costed her the SmackDown Women's title back in the five-pack challenge back at WrestleMania. So I was just confused. The match did end off some awkward crucifix pin that looked like she was trying to go for the Samoan drop, but it ended in a crucifix. And it was just unnecessary near fall. It was just dumb. It was just a basic match. It's already gay enough that Bayley has this awkward ass fucking auntie hair that some forgettable auntie that knows your mom from some bad past. She looks like that fucking monkey off space, that female monkey off Space Chimps. She just looks awkward. I don't know why she even changed her hair. It could be fine to just let your goddamn hair down, leave it in a bun. She has it in this weird fucking side, and she doesn't even change much about her character. Most of her characters, she's a heel now, and she just hates her hair, I guess, and it's just awkward storytelling. And I know how much people wanted her to turn heel because of her face pull, and her as a face is not really selling up any traction, and we're trying to make her more legitimate, but that's not selling tickets. It's not letting people actually come around and tune in to watch SmackDown. Thanks, Bayley's just a generic heel. And there's not that much of an attraction to her. I'm not saying that it's always important to have an attractive female wrestler. It's not. It's really not. It doesn't have to be. But there's no particular thing on what you had from AJ Lee that was a crazy psycho, a boy crazy chick that can be sadistic at times. And she was the most beloved thing that nearly every other girl wanted to be. And some people I know behave like. But besides the point, that's somebody you can get behind. I can't, and that's heel or babyface of AJ Lee. I can't get behind babyface or heel Bayley. It's just terrible. She's just terrible. Next up was the Universal Championship match that they forcibly want me to still care about over all this bullshit time. Sorry about the camera. They had them borderline the fact of bronze of the most personal feud probably Bray Wyatt's going to get, and he doesn't even turn Fiend. How underwhelming! It really is, trying to pierce in the fact of the puppets coming to life, cheering Bray Wyatt on. How they're trying to make this oddly cinematic, but Braun Strowman keeps coming. Shoulder tackles off the wazoo, a vertical suplex. It just felt like just a fucking wrestling match for obviously a character that's more depicted to do more hardcore shit, do more weapons. and they don't do anything unique about it. It just absolutely pisses me off how you have trying to make Bray Wyatt still feel like a unique character, and then you have him just regular Bray Wyatt, and then Braun Strowman comes wearing the mask and shit out of nowhere to psych up, have this awkward hug that lasted as long as it did, obviously dragging out that he's gonna take the mask off and beat him up. Like, what the fuck? And this is the same thing that this is the same thing that had Randy Orton turn into a Wyatt family member. Then it didn't even take a few months until he faced him off at WrestleMania. None of Bray Wyatt is going to work in WWE. They really don't. And they just depict itself as Bray Wyatt is scary, and we barely have scary guys, unlike he's Kane or The Undertaker or some shit like that. Or Mankind. He's like the mix of that, just turn it into PG and make sure he never gets treated like a legitimate star. This is the same guy who lost to a 50-year-old Goldberg. I already lost my chances since the Hell in a Cell match, or his ridiculous matches that don't sell out the point of Bray Wyatt actually being threatening. Other than him being a pity little bitch, because John Cena wouldn't get him over 6 years ago. And over that time, there's no excuses on why Bray Wyatt wouldn't get himself over. And whoever tries to depict Bray Wyatt as a promising star with the Fiend gimmick, even though he had more years as literally the biggest talker and the biggest guy to be on the main event scene and still be undervalued, it brings up to not everything is WWE creative. WWE creative really doesn't want this guy to get over in any way, shape, or form, even if he's heel babyface or changes his gimmick. So I would just release him at this point, just like they did Rusev. Next up would be Seth Rollins in the second best match of the show. Seth Rollins against Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship. And I have to say, oh my god, this match was so they could have done this on a Raw, and you would have had the same energy like you have at this point. We had headbutts. Seth Rollins still doing it. The only thing that changed, literally, it wasn't even selling a ligament. I guess Rollins just targeting on that leg to slow down the Claymore kick, or I think trying to stop or trying to shut down the shoulder for the Future Shock DDT, even though that's not even his finisher anymore. It just felt just the theme song changed. No storytelling was involved other than Seth Rollins is wrestling as hard as he can so he can become WWE champion. They've devalued so many times the WWE and the Intercontinental title, many of the championships, and they have 27 championships. On the damn show, it gets agitating to keep up if I really care. Whoever holds on to the damn thing. Nobody feels like they want to make sure the belt feels prestigious. It's just that they'll be a fighting champion. A kick out after, a super kick, and a curb stomp. I think there was a time he was trying to go for the curb stomp and it went into a Claymore kick. It was a decent match. That's all I could say. You could say that the work rate was fine and the chemistry was fine and all that crap. Just know it didn't hit hard at all. Because Rollins just came out of nowhere and attacked him, and that was practically the feud. Rollins didn't even earn the championship opportunity over guys like Lashley. And Ricochet, that's now in the tag team division after having a title shot for the world title literally months ago. And none of these guys been issued an opportunity. Lashley, what the fuck? It's they're devaluing him to just beat jobbers until he gets I guess a better managerial position. I guess that's what they're doing with him. But they could have done this since after Mania. Who doesn't want to see Lashley versus Drew McIntyre? The match was good, but it didn't feel as impactful because there was no crowd and there wasn't that much storytelling, and yet Rollins was near depths of losing the WWE title match, and yet he didn't even do the shit that he did to Rey Mysterio the next night on Raw. So not that much there. Next up was the Money in the Bank ladder match. What do you want me to say? Was it unique? Yes. Was it good? No. There's a difference. There's a huge difference. from looking at a fucking spiky party bag, and it's look nice. There's still fucking candy in it. What's new? We had unnecessary slapstick. Dana Brooke treated like a complete fucking retard after a majority of the weeks pulling through the Money in the Bank that she was a legitimate onslaught favorite. She comes around picking off a briefcase from the top of from the ceiling of an office, even though that's not even where the contract is. She slips on a mop. She gets hit with a painting by her own tag team partner. Doesn't even know where the fuck to go. Asuka comes around at the start of the show. Literally, it could have been just the best thing to do, other than just making this a Money in the Bank, the corporate ladder match. I thought, oh wow, most of these guys haven't been in the HQ that often. That means they're gonna hide the briefcase in the goddamn building. And I thought it'd be more funner, like Vince McMahon gets overwhelmed by the Superstars wrestling or something. John Laurinaitis comes for a quick cameo. We had Brother Love come from the showers. The time I think Otis was walking through, we had a quick glance with Shayna Baszler giving a coquina clutch to Rey Mysterio, and then two fat people were looking upon each other's eyes, even though Otis is taken. Nia Jax, I just wish you got hit real fucking hard. I hate you. Like, every time. I just feel like there's no reason for her to even get pushed, but that's besides the point. I'm not always gonna. I just hate the methods that she has in the ring. If she comes, luckily this was completely scripted, with indie-rific, like if former Viners took care of the audio troubles instead of like having some good rocking music, like have your adrenaline pumping. You're literally getting up from a building to the ceiling for the Money in the Bank briefcase, and we it's like fucking YouTube shit, and this is on the network. This is a pay-per-view. Comes around comedically hollering at each other, screaming for majority of the match. And I get that they were trying to go all out and be a bit more comedic, try to show that this is a fun thing. And obviously this is not even going to be the fucking video game like goddamn War Games match. But I expect a bit more from this. We had a quick glance on posters. AJ Styles comes around like getting away from the casket because oh my god, the Bones match, the Bones match. Oh my god, AJ Styles is getting some trauma from getting buried, and then Aleister Black comes kicking him in the face. I think Baron Corbin only did one thing in the building, and that was just toss a weight. Styles and Daniel Bryan got in Vince's office until he told him to get out, and it's like that could have been the most creative part of the show. Literally just mess up Vince's office to see how much you won the Money in the Bank briefcase. Stop the other guy from getting up to the ceiling. And I thought somebody was going to toss someone out the building. No, it would take Corbin literally tossing Rey Mysterio and Aleister Black from the outside of the goddamn building just for them to hit second layer, because you really think Corbin's gonna kill two people? People's like, oh my god, you know they're fine. It's PG WWE. They're not killing anybody until somebody ends up dead by an overdose in a few months because they had to get jobbed out by Noe Jose or something. Then Asuka comes later with the rest of the superstars. Dana Brooke only had one thing. Just have comedic spots. I think she even slipped on a mop after Asuka tossed a mop on a few of the women. She comes around hitting Baron Corbin out of the ladder for some apparent reason, even though there's two briefcases for two genders. Yet she stops Baron Corbin from reaching the briefcase. She could have went for her own, or she thinks this is 2K20 and you can just hit somebody until you get to the ladder. They didn't do this for Otis. As soon as Asuka won and celebrated for like 30 seconds, they just immediately cut away from Otis, just trying to grab the briefcase. And then Otis, let's just cut it off. Otis won off Corbin getting hit by Elias with the guitar, and then AJ Styles dropped the briefcase and hit fucking Otis. No one gave a shit. Otis won Money in the Bank. No one will fucking care. Money in the Bank already been deprived into just giving jobbers chances to be world champion. And the last time they actually gave it to somebody legit was, I think, just Brock Lesnar. But that came out of nowhere and nobody liked that. Or if you want to say CM Punk because he won it twice and became world champion. But one title reign was irrelevant, and the other one had his best feud with Jeff Hardy. But he ended up leaving the company that year. So you could say whatever you can on that. I don't give a shit. I don't know what was the point on giving a guy like Otis the Money in the Bank briefcase. I thought it'd be fine to make him an Intercontinental Champion, try to build him up to that accord because he's like treated as this comedic fat guy, and yet he comes around getting pushed for the fucking Money in the Bank ladder match, and you expect him to have a couple comedic spots, right? And then he comes around winning the damn thing because AJ Styles couldn't hold on to the fucking briefcase with his ugly ass gloves that he still does this with like a fucking wide receiver in his early 20s. It's dumb. The match was dumb. This was oversaturated comedic flesh. This match was retarded. There was no reason to give Otis the Money in the Bank briefcase. You could have given it to Aleister Black. Fuck it. You could have gave it to Corbin because at least he's been treated like a singles top guy on SmackDown for the last several months. You could have done that. There could have been unpredictability on Aleister Black or AJ Styles. Or somebody else. Just somebody else that was not fucking Otis. And I was like, oh my god, don't you want Otis to succeed? I'm sick of these guys. No! Watch the fucking show. I have to. You come around acting like a little shit because you want everybody everybody deserves to be world champion. If you get in that open mindset like that, this company's not going to succeed. They're already going off the gutter. I thought, in my own opinion, that Batista should have won at WrestleMania or something. You have a returning guy like that would be bringing back older fans to build up your popularity, and then you give it to Daniel Bryan. Then he gets injury prone because he forgot he does tope suicidas like a madman, and he breaks his fucking neck every 24/7. There's no even particular storytelling in this match, just comedic angles, and we forgot that we had to do Money in the Bank, and then we treated it like a joke. Now with the Money, now it's just a gimmick match, a retarded gimmick match for a pay-per-view. And it felt so undervalued with all this cinematic bullcrap that people think that the Money in the Bank ladder match was fun. Into giving some bullshit, it was just dumb. It was dumb continuity and made everything feel corny, and it was the weakest part of the show. And if you thought otherwise, fine. If you enjoyed the pay-per-view, that's completely fine. Just know that I give it a 3 out of 10. It was a crap pay-per-view. One of the weaker pay-per-views next to WrestleMania 36. You can at me on that. The only pay-per-view I didn't mind watching was Royal Rumble of this year. You had Edge popping out. You had a few good Royal Rumble. You had a few good one-on-one matches. Asuka and Becky Lynch wasn't that bad at all. And the only weakest part was probably the street fight with Baron Corbin and Roman Reigns. That was practically it. The strap match with Daniel Bryan and The Fiend was a highlight. It was a great match. So you're telling me that I had to come around and watch just 20-something minutes of slapstick and then go up to the Money in the Bank ladder match? And then you have a perennial, like, borderline jobber. Like, if he did win the Money in the Bank briefcase, they would have went with a dumbass breakup angle with him and Mandy Rose and then have him, like, turn heel. Or something. This show was mediocre as all hell. And if you thought otherwise, differently, that's good on your parts. But you gotta be honest to yourself. Would you really, in months' time, would you rewatch this pay-per-view? I'm just saying. That's it coming from the DST show. Like, comment, and subscribe. Write how you felt about Money in the Bank on the comments down below. This is it coming from your guy.